major religious traditions, whether Hinduism or Buddhism or Christianity or Jewish, whatever it may be, they very often speak about the core of religion, namely the theme of compassion. Even the modern scientists, neuroscientists, psychologists especially, neuroscientist V.R. Ramachandran, who is working in the States as a neuroscientist, and Seligman, the recent innovative thinker who has brought a lot of changes in the field of positive psychology. All this time we were looking at the medical model where we speak of schizophrenia, depression, anxiety and so on. Now it's the other way around, how to make people happy, how to bring the goodness in a person. So we start from the person's strength and not the sickness of a person. So all these people have contributed very much to the theme of compassion. And above all, the recent spiritual giants, I would call, like Mother Teresa, John Paul II, Albert Schweitzer, then we have Dalai Lama, Thomas Merton, and few others, Franciscans, spiritual writer, his name is Richard Rohr, and Lawrence Freeman. All these people are the modern spiritual writers and very innovative speakers. They always have something to say about this theme of compassion. I am reminded of a story of the famous wrestler or a boxer. You all would have heard his name, Muhammad Ali. He was at the height of his fame and power and prestige and great position. His career was a very, very successful one as a heavyweight champion, wrestler and boxer. So he used to go sometimes for an evening walk along the New York streets. Some of the streets are very, very poor. So whenever he goes, a group of reporters, journalists also accompany him. One day it so happened that while he was going for a walk, all the cameramen and the journalists, reporters, they followed him. And he came to one of the poor streets of New York, where he met a tramp. Tramp means a person who does not have a house or home to live in. He just sleeps on the pavement or whatever it may be. He is known as a tramp. He doesn't have a house or home to call as his own. So Ali was interested and he stopped for a while and he sat, he crouched down and listened to his story. And he asked him, how did you start? How did you happen to live in this shanty or in this village? And he was listening to him very patiently. And after listening, he bid farewell to that tramp and bid goodbye and went back and left the place. All of a sudden, the reporters as well as the journalists, they went to see this tramp and asked him, now, who is the greatest? He said, of course, the tramp said, it is Muhammad Ali. Why do you think of that he is the greatest? He said he listened to my story. What did he say to you? What did you say to him? He was interested in my personal life and he asked me how I got into this tramp, into this shanty living. Then while I was relating my story, I was overwhelming with tears, and he also bid me by saying, I told him, this is what he said, I was in tears, and he looked at me back and said, "Goodbye." And that is where I try to situate the theme of compassion. He cried at me, and I cried at him, and he cried at me back. This is the core of compassion, to be with the suffering. Latin word, it comes from compatire, to suffer with a person. That's the meaning. And I am also reminded what the psychologists and the science would say about this theme of compassion. In one of the universities in California, one professor showed the film of Mother Teresa, whose work is very much known. So he selected a few graduate students, and he showed this film to these graduate students. Her work among the poor, among the destitute, among the vulnerable groups. After the show, all the students felt that they were more compassionate. The story does not end there. The doctor, the psychologist, the professor, who wanted to measure the saliva of these students, and he came to the conclusion there was a hormone when they saw the film of Mother Teresa's work. The compassionate feeling produced some kind of hormones which is very effective in treating respiratory infections, maybe cold or asthma or whatever it may be. So these are scientific facts which substantiate the importance of compassion. And Seligman also, in his research and study in his positive psychology, the core of man's journey is to be a compassionate person. And actually, together with the scientist, I also would say that we are all connected or hardwired to the ultimate reality. We are hardwired to the ultimate reality to be compassionate, to be merciful, to be loving. Now let me come back what our tradition, Christianity or Catholicism, says about compassion. In the Hebrew literature, we have a lot of connotations to the word compassion. As Jesus belongs to the Hebrew tradition, the word for compassion is a kind of feeling. It's not a feeling. So to say, you get into another man's skin and see how it would be if you experience that pain or joy for you personally. So the Hebrew also says the word connotes and attributes compassion as God's love, mercy and compassion. And above all, the Hebrew literature compares God as a mother. The word connotes to the womb, how a mother nurtures the child, how she feeds the child while the baby is in a womb. Now that is how the Hebrew literature depicts paint God as a compassionate father. In the life of Christ also we could see, he says very often, be compassionate as the Father is compassionate. And he felt compassion. In Matthew he says, when he saw the crowd, he was moved to compassion. he says. And now what does it mean when we really go into the aspect of compassion? So the Greek word in the New Testament, it is used as moved. Christ was moved in his innermost being. Or we could say entrails. Entrails means the important inner organs of your body, mainly the heart. The heart. So whenever Christ saw the crowd, he was moved in his innermost being or entrails. It's a feeling of what it is like to live in someone else's skin. His heart was contracted convulsively. Namely, there's a condition when a person gets epileptic fits. Actually, he convulsed. That means his body will be contracted and convulsed. So this takes place when we are compassionate with someone. Your heart, for a moment, stops, so to say. It contracts and convulsively reflects. That's the meaning of what Christ gave for the word compassion. It is not, compassion is not bending towards the underprivileged from a privileged position. It is not reaching out from the high to those who are less fortunate below. It is not a gesture of sympathy or pity. It is more than that. Compassion means going directly to those places and people where suffering is most acute and building a home there. Building a home does not mean that physical building of houses and improvement. It does not mean that here. Suffering is most, we had to go where suffering is most acute and build a home there. This is what incarnation means. God came and dwelt, took his abode or took his house among us, pitched his tent among us. So that is the meaning of compassion. As I told you, compassion is the meaning to suffer with. Compassion asks us to go where it really hurts, to enter the places of pain, to share the brokenness, fear, confusion, and anguish. It challenges us to cry out with those in misery, to mourn with those who mourn, to weep with those who weep. It requires us to be weak with the weak, vulnerable with the vulnerable, powerless with the powerless. Compassion means full of immersion in the human condition, the human being, full immersion of the human being. As you know, we are all vulnerable, you and me. So we all carry our past hurts and wounds and so on. So we all have a lot of pain, fears, anxiety, guilt, shame, greed, anger, resentment, hatred, jealousy, loneliness, sexuality, brokenness, vulnerability, rejection, and feeling of unloved. We all have this. We can't deny. This is our vulnerability. We must get in touch with our vulnerability. It's very difficult for us to get in touch with our brokenness or woundedness or vulnerability. Vulnerability means we are easily hurt. We are easily become very sensitive when something negative happens to us. So the best thing for us is to accept our vulnerability, our woundedness, our brokenness, our splinteredness, our shatteredness in our human life. That's why we are called wounded healers, or healed healers. Healed healers. Today, the movement in spirituality towards upward mobility. What does it mean by upward mobility? Means people are craving for success, for power, for prestige, for position. Whereas Christ's way is downward mobility, where he was among the poor. As oblates, we are also called to that, to be with the poor. That is our charism too. So with this background, I want to situate my ministry almost for the last 25 years. I'm very grateful to Father Veda, who is here, who is the one who encouraged me when he was taking up the leadership in Jaffna, when he was with the Colombo province. So he was our superior, and thanks to my community, our present provincial Father Paul Najitram, and the present district superior Father Lambert, have encouraged me into this field. So I left the country in 1982 after 12 years of preaching. I was there in Canada for 2 years. After my master's I came, and Father Ponia was the superior or the provincial. Then immediately he said, I have something special for you. And he said, you go and start the ministry of formation. That is how I started in 1984. I took charge of the philosophy there at Vasantham Mason House. I was there almost for 6 years. It was during this period, especially in 1987, Professor Ganeshwaran, at the time he was the psychiatrist, he came to know that I am specialized in this field of clinical and counseling psychology. He wanted my help, and he organized a symposium, the psychological sequelae of war in Jaffna Peninsula. That was a really milestone for me and for the medical faculty in Jaffna in 87. I think it's somewhere in October. Around this time, we had the symposium for 3 days. So I was called to speak on the trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder. So it was afterwards, little by little, my interest started more in this counseling. So I was having contact with this professor, and he used to call me a few lectures to the medical students at the time. And there was another important milestone in my life where there was a British psychologist from UK. She came to Jaffna. She was interested in the welfare of the Tamil people. I didn't know her. She went to the GA, and at the time the GA directed her to me. At the time I was at Vasantham. Then we planned together, within 2 days, we ran a program for the medical students at that time, because all were free, especially the final year students who were free at the time because of the IPKF time. So we had 21 days of program together, both of us had this program, and it was quite providential at that time. About 500 detainees, youngsters, were freed from the Musa camp. So we were invited to speak to these people at Bhavania. So we went, a group of doctors went there together with the final year medical students, and we started screening them. At the time they were tortured, they were beaten, all types of possible tortures were given to them. So we were there almost for a month, and then we referred the different cases to our clinic here in Jaffna. Then once, at the time already I was part-time, I would go on visiting lecturer at the medical faculty. So Professor Ganeshwaran was at the time, he was interested that he wanted to build up his department of psychiatry with a clinical and a counseling psychologist. At the same time, I was looking after the formation work of ministry also. So in 1992, I think, 1992, after finishing my period at Vasantaram, then again officially I was asked to take up the ministry in the hospital. So Father Ponea graciously granted permission at the time, and that is how almost for 10 years I was here in the hospital as well as in the faculty and Telipala Hospital for ward rounds. That's how I started the ministry. In the meantime, in 1987, there was another important thing that happened. This particular psychologist, Anna Dhoni, who came from UK, she was interested in establishing a counseling center. So with the support of some of the doctors like Nachana Kenyan, Dr. Devendran, Dr. Dayaswami Sundaram, Dr. Ganeshwaran, all these people together with their support and encouragement and help, in 1987 we started the counseling center, Shanti. And gradually, of course, then it was handed over to the lay people. Now they are doing very well and it goes on. So this year is supposed to be the 24th year of founding Shanti Counseling Center. Again, coming back to the history of displacement, to the major exodus. So nobody was spared, and during the time together with the mass, we also walked to Chavacheri, and there I stayed with Father Patrick Prakasan, and I was doing my ministry because it was a government appointment. So I was daily together with the staff and doctors. I used to come from Chavacheri to Coimbatore to do my ministry during that time, almost for 6 months. That's how I was doing my ministry, together refugee camps and visiting and organizing medical camps and counseling and so on. Then after coming in 1996, yes, the UNICEF approached me and asked me whether I could take up the ministry for the children who are wounded, who are psychologically disturbed and so on. For 3 years, they supported me, of course with the permission of Father Jiva Paul at the time. And that is how I started the foundation of the Holistic Health Center, where I was working for 6 years almost there. Then I told Father Jiva, Father, I'm really tired to work, to be in this ministry at a stretch. And he asked me what I'm going to do. I told him it is your decision. Then he asked me to hold on for some time. So 2 weeks I was at Podar. Then he all of a sudden he called me. Father Veda, myself and Father Jiva Paul came here to find a place here. It was holy. So we have informed Father Ildiadas and our catechist Father, Brother Jersil Master, and we came here. We didn't find anyone, so we are on the way back. And then somehow the Jersil Master came to know that we came, and that's how we came immediately. Jiva Paul was a man of action. He said, what do you think of that? Though it was very expensive at the time. Anyway, he decided on the spot to buy it. And that is how the ministry was started here in Angelia. Of course, it took 2 years to build up and so on. So the ministry really began in 2006. It took a long time actually to organize and so on. Geographically, this is an area where predominantly the Hindus are there, but it has no problem for us. So I was all alone for 2 years trying to find ways and means of how to do my ministry. And little by little, I have organized some English classes for the poor children around, maybe at the time, maybe 5 or 10. And little by little, after 3rd year, Father Edwin joined me, then Father Vimal, then Father Basti was here for some time, and finally, Father is here for the last 2 years. So you may be wondering now what other ministry we are involved. Our main ministry is counseling. You know this area is very badly hit by tsunami and war. There are a lot of widows. We have more than 500 widows in this area, but we are currently working with 75 widows and with their children. So we have 7 counselors who have been trained by us. And what we do is practically every day they go to their houses and visit these widows and try to do their counseling there. And at the same time, we do counseling for their children also. Every month we have a gathering. About 40 to 50 women comes together and share their joys and sorrows and brokenness or woundedness, and we try to help them through group therapies. And similar project is carried out, similar ministry is for their children also, about 70 of them. Every month we have program for these people. And we also have program at Achuveli hostel. There are almost 110 children, most of them from Bani. So once a month we go there with a team and we do the ministry of counseling also, organizing seminars and private counseling, organizing other educational programs for them. And besides that, a new ministry also is emerging recently for the last 1 year. We have cases referred by the judge here on Hindu. Madam Srinidhi Nandasari is very supportive of our work here. So far, within 1 year, I think we have, Father Vijay and myself, we have seen almost 80 couples who have come for counseling, some for divorce, others for various things like that. So almost 80 of them within 1 year. Still she is selling. So this is another new ministry that we are involved. And we also run a tuition for 275 children from grade 1 to grade 11. We have about 20 teachers also employed here. We have major subjects like science, maths, Tamil, English, and social. And besides, we want to promote culture. So we have dance, yoga, karate, and meditation also, Saturdays and Sundays. So these are some of the programs that both Father Vijay and myself carry out here. It's a ministry of compassion. I look at this way actually. I am also a wounded person, broken person. I am not fighting shy to say that. We are all wounded. Nobody can say I am above all these wounds. No, that means we are cheating ourselves. I accept, I own myself, my vulnerability. And I always see this, what is my ministry here. A vulnerable God comes to me daily to heal my vulnerability. So I apply that principle in my philosophy of counseling. Vulnerable counseling comes to a vulnerable counselor. There's an encounter between me and the counseling. Both are vulnerable. So I am not quite shy of my vulnerability. I would say that compassionate, or I would say, I am your brother when I see a client. I am your sister. I am a human being. I am fragile. I am mortal like you. I am not scandalized by your tears, nor afraid of your pain. I too wept, and I too have felt my pain. This is my philosophy of my counseling. As a final end note, I would say this. I was reflecting the whole day. A true compassionate person is not the one who withdraws from the world to save his or her own soul. Though the gospel today, Jesus, early morning, he got up and went to a lonely place, we are told. I am not denying that. That's what I say again. A true compassionate counselor is not the one who withdraws from the world to save his or her own soul, but enters into the center of the world and pray to God from there.